In the annals of history, there's nothing that captures the imagination quite like the clash of titans. When two mighty empires, each at the pinnacle of its power, find themselves on a collision course, the resulting showdown can alter the course of human history. Empire, a series that pits rival powers against one another in clashes of arms, cultures, and ambitions. Each episode, we examine one of these epic showdowns between rival empires like the Roman-Persian Wars or the Byzantine-Ottoman conflicts, and their world-altering consequences. Hi everyone, I'm your host. Welcome to Echoes of Empire. In many ways, the Ottomans were the Byzantines' greatest success story. But all those resources diverted away from defending the rest of the empire's borders allowed the Ottomans to push further into the Balkans and seas. Key cities like Adrianople in 1461 and Thessalonica in 1472. A lot of people today think of the Ottoman Turks as the quintessential outsiders who threatened the heartland of Europe. But when you hear about the Byzantine Empire, what comes to mind? Does anything come to mind? Probably not. The Byzantines and the Ottomans were really two sides of the same coin. The Ottomans couldn't exist without the legacy of the Byzantines, and the Byzantines couldn't exist without the threat posed by the Ottomans. So both empires defined each other and fundamentally shaped each other's histories. But until the 1200s, the Ottomans actually ruled over some of the most quintessentially European territory imaginable. Every major empire throughout history has had a rival who challenged its worldview, forced it to adapt, and inspired its greatest innovations. We use a combination of battle reenactments, animated maps, and expert analysis to capture the scale and impact of these clashes. We painstakingly reconstruct battles using primary sources and archaeological evidence. Then we animate the shifting borders and changing fortunes of the empires involved to give you a bird's-eye view of the rivalry as a whole. And by bringing in experts, we weave in layers of analysis that highlight the nuances of each engagement, allowing us to explore the broader historical trends that they illustrate. And when those empires met in battle, the results could be catastrophic. During the Crusades, Venetian and Genoese merchants regularly traveled through Ottoman-controlled ports on their way to the Holy Land, and the Ottomans themselves were actually one of the few outside powers that ever successfully invaded Hungary. We believe that history has something to teach us all, and that by studying the past, we can better understand ourselves and the world around us. So join us as we bring these historic clashes to life. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If anything, they were basically trying to be the new Rome. The Ottomans saw themselves as the heirs to the Roman emperors, and they used this narrative to help justify conquests across the Mediterranean. This wasn't lost on the Byzantines either, who complained that the Ottomans were desecrating Roman soil with their uncivilized hordes. To the Byzantines and the Romans before them, Anatolia and the Balkans were home to the ancient Greek and Roman civilizations, and only a decadent foreign power could conquer them. By this point, the Byzantine emperor was reduced to ruling just over a few city blocks surrounding the Hagia Sophia. So in 1480, he made a deal with the Ottoman Sultan, granting him full sovereignty over the rest of the former Roman world in exchange for an annual tribute payment. From this point forward, the Ottoman Sultan would be the new Roman emperor, ruling over Orthodox Christian subjects in the Balkans and Anatolia and adding new lands to his empire every year. The Byzantines weren't completely extinguished, but they were functionally irrelevant. For centuries, the Eastern Roman emperors had struggled to maintain control over their far-flung territories, but by the 1300s, after centuries of gradual conquest, the Ottomans had swept through the Balkans and Anatolia, establishing their own Turkish-speaking empire right on the doorstep of Constantinople itself. For a moment, it looked as though Rome's long imperial dream was dead, and the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire was about to collapse into irrelevance. But instead, this humiliation only inspired the Byzantines to fight back and miraculously hold on to their capital, which they would successfully defend against Ottoman siege in 1453. But in doing so, they inadvertently helped set the stage for their own destruction. Why do we love reality TV shows pitting strangers against one another in the wilderness? Or fictional sagas where two houses vie for supremacy? Or even news stories about feuding families? As humans, we love stories of conflict. It's hard-coded into us. Think about it. Most of our traditional narratives follow this kind of three-part structure. You have the build-up of opposing forces. Then there's the climax, usually involving some sort of battle or confrontation. And then finally there's the aftermath. This narrative structure reflects not only how our brains process information, but also how we experience life. We face challenges, build up our resources, and then confront the problem head-on. Once the battle is done, we can look back and see how much we've changed, grown, or maybe even regressed because of what happened. So why are rivalries such a compelling aspect of human history? Why do we keep returning to them even today? Rivalries are just natural sources of drama. And if you zoom out enough, you can see these patterns play out across all of human history. The most powerful empires in any given era often rise up in response to the failures of previous powers. They learn from the mistakes of their predecessors, overcoming the flaws that led to their rivals' decline, and seize new opportunities to reshape the world in their own image. But then inevitably, as they grow, they too will eventually fall victim to the same problems that felled their rivals before them. So what we end up with is this endless cycle of rising powers, territorial expansion, cultural exchange, and inevitably conflict. The story of the Byzantine and Ottoman empires is a perfect microcosm of this phenomenon. The defense of Constantinople pushed the Byzantines to innovate and create new technologies, including their famous gunpowder cannons. Stories like the Byzantines and Ottomans teach us how important it is to understand the context of a historical event. Of course, you don't need me to tell you about the Ottoman Empire. Everybody knows about them, right? This isn't just true for the Ottomans and the Byzantines. So now that we've established why rivalries are so compelling, let's talk about how we bring these historic showdowns to life here on the channel. We hope that by exploring these epic clashes, you will gain a deeper understanding of how the world has changed over time and the role these conflicts played in shaping our modern world.